Jean Piaget lived from 1896 to 1980 and spent most of his life in Switzerland. Living through this time period meant that, like many of the psychologists that we've learned about, Piaget experienced both the world wars. However, since Switzerland maintained armed neutrality through both world wars, Piaget did not experience the effects of the wars like many in Europe did. 1918 marked an important year for Piaget because it was both the end of World War I and the year he earned his PhD of natural science. The end of World War I is notable to Piaget because it made it possible for Piaget to study at the Sorbonne and Paris. However, during this time, Switzerland and Paris both experienced an economic downturn. Similar to the World Wars, though, it's hard to see how these events affected Piaget's work.
Initially, we chose Piaget because, as he is one of the most influential names in developmental psychology, we did not know that much about him. However, as we researched him further, we quickly discovered that he is popular for good reason, and we're happy with our decision. Furman points out the fact that Piaget had vastly different intentions for his research than others. He stands in stark contrast with his predecessor, Sigmund Freud. Freud was interested in pathology and the study of unhealthy childhoods. Piaget took a step back and studied healthy and normal child development and learning. This fundamental approach to development helped form a scientific framework for psychology, and this led to a much deeper understanding of the topic as a whole. Piaget was also very different because he used his own children as his inspiration in his studies. Their development helped shape his own understanding of child development. Piaget also had a particular interest in child education, learning, and child morality. These understandings have been monumental in modern child rearing, discipline, and education techniques and practices. And it is no doubt that Piaget is one of the most influential psychologists.
Piaget started his academic career young. His first published article was on albino sparrows when he was 11 years old. Throughout his high school years, Piaget also did notable work on mollusks. By the end of his high school career, Piaget had become a notable zoologist, but his father, a professor of medieval literature and godfather, Samuel Cornett, helped foster interdisciplinary interests. After receiving his PhD in natural science, Piaget went on to study psychology. While studying psychology, he came into contact with the intelligence testing movement through Alfred Binet and Theodore Simon, and helped develop and administer intelligence tests to children. Unlike many in the intelligence testing movement, though, Piaget was very interested in the errors that children made and the logical processes that led to these errors. And this interest became the basis of much of Piaget's work, including his development of genetic epistemology. Fisher and Kaplan noted that Piaget saw himself not primarily as a psychologist, but as a genetic epistemologist, a scientist who studies the origins and development of human knowledge by combining biology and logic. The basic of genetic epistemology was rooted in Piaget's interest in how he saw children grow to understand the world. In my opinion, the ultimate expression of Piaget's dedication to understanding the development of knowledge is his own study of his 3 children and their interactions with their mother through their infancy. What Piaget's work revealed was that knowledge is built on a system of increasingly complex systems of logic that compound from infancy to adulthood, resulting in the thought processes and logical reasoning of children being significantly different from that of adults.
In this slide, we'll be talking about how Jean Piaget believed children went through 4 stages of development, which the first one is sensomotor stage, which occurs around birth to 2 years of age. At this stage, they learn about their senses and movements, and certain abilities are obtained at this age, such as object permanence. On the next stage, we have preoperational stage, which occurs around ages 2 to 7 years old. At this stage, children start to want to speak, get a certain language they're accustomed at home, and have a great imagination and thinking. Their brain starts developing more thinking skills, logic, The third stage is the concrete operational stage, which occurs at ages 7 to 11 years old. At this stage, children begin to understand logical problems or events that are occurring at home or anywhere they're at. Feelings start to approach more at this stage. For example, they start seeing objects as having feelings itself. And lastly, we have the formal operational stage, which occurs around ages 12 and up. At this stage, adolescents are capable of dealing with certain situations, and they are quick to make solutions up without thinking right away for a solution.
Object permanence is another important contribution of Piaget. According to Alidog, object permanence is the developmental stage where a child realizes that an object continues to exist, even if it cannot be seen. Object permanence occurs around the sensory motor stage before a child reaches 2. As shown on the picture of the left, object permanence is studied when something such as a ball or a toy, for example, is given to a child and then taken away. When the ball is blacked by the book, the baby will believe that the ball is no longer there. They will think it does not exist, and they will fail to look around or check for the ball, as he or she believes that the ball is simply no longer there. This is a lack of object permanence. A child will show object permanence when they demonstrate that although they can no longer see the ball, they know that it is behind the book. Conservation is another of Piaget's most noteworthy psych contributions. According to Alidog, conservation is the understanding that changing the form of a substance or object does not change its amount, overall volume, or mass. This accomplishment occurs during the operational stage of development, which is between the ages of 7 and 11. The picture on the left shows 4 different ways Piaget would study conservation in children. 4 of the types of conservation include volume, number, matter, and length. Piaget would study volume by presenting the child with 2 equal glasses of liquid and then pouring one of the glasses into a taller, narrower glass. The child would have to demonstrate that they understand that the amount or volume of the water did not change. Piaget would test number by presenting a child with 2 equal lines of checkers. He would increase the spacing of the checkers in one line, and the child would have to be able to demonstrate that they understood that the amount and number of the checkers did not change. For matter, Piaget would present the child with 2 equal balls of clay and squeeze one of them into a long, thin shape. The child in that case would have to demonstrate that they understood that the amount of matter, the amount of clay, did not change. When studying length, Piaget would provide a child with 2 sticks of equal length, move one stick, and the child would have to be able to demonstrate that they understood that the sticks were still of equal length, although they were not right next to each other. Piaget was a psychologist that was appreciated during his lifetime. According to History Computer staff in 2021, he won many awards, such as the 1979 Balzan Prize for Political and Social Sciences, in recognition of his epistemological studies. He also won the Erasmus Prize in 1972 for his exemplary contributions to science, culture, and European society in general. He won the Kitty International Award, which acknowledged the psychiatric efforts that Piaget put into place to apply clinical concepts in a psychiatric experiment. Piaget was also published many times, and 2 of his most popular works included The Moral Judgment of the Child and The Language and Thought of the Child.
I have 3 questions. How did being a published zoologist at age 11 affect the course of your life? I would want to know the reaction of adults who would be his peers as a published adult. Also, his perspective using his own life as sort of a case study on child psychology would be interesting as well. My other question would be, what would you consider to be your greatest accomplishment? And lastly, would your stages of development change for children in today's era? Like children nowadays are really advanced in technology and other things at yet such a young age. How do you feel about this?